dear grade 12 learners, welcome to today's business studies lesson. My name is Studeis. This program is funded by the Northern Cape Department of Education, broadcast by Pagama Research and Development. Today we look into a main topic we call the business venture, which is assessed in the paper 2, and the subtopic we look into is forms of ownership, and this is part 3 of our forms of ownership. And this is very critical because we are looking into factors that contribute to the success and failure of the different forms of ownerships. Now, learning outcomes by the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain or discuss how the following criteria contribute to the success or failure of each form of ownership. We'll look into the following criteria or factors: tax implications. This will be focusing on the idea that the tax requirements of each form of ownership determine the impact of taxation on the business success or failure. We'll also look into management to say different forms of ownership have a way of managing their businesses. So ownership impacts on management function as well, which determines the success and failure. And we'll also look into capital, which now focuses on the idea that it refers to the ability to obtain capital from various sources, e.g. it can be owned or borrowed capital. And this is to say some forms of ownership are able to get capital easier compared to others because of maybe the nature or the size of their business. Then division of profits, it refers to how profit is divided between owners, shareholders, or investors. It depends with the form of ownership. And then legislation or legal requirements is for establishments or starting a business, which will impact on the establishments on the cost and time before a business can legally do its operations. Pre-knowledge, in our previous lesson, we looked into the characteristics and the meaning of the following forms of ownership, which was your state-owned, non-profit, and cooperatives. We also assessed or analyzed the impact of these forms of ownerships. Then, now we have a baseline: which company has government as the majority shareholder? Is it the public company? Is it the private company? Is it the personal liability or the state-owned company? By that, because of what we covered in our previous lesson, you should know that the answer cannot be public company or private, because the two, they are just different, because of the idea that the public company is able to sell shares to the general public while the private company cannot do so. And then personal liability is similar to a private company. The only difference is that now with personal liability, the directors have unlimited liability. With D becomes our answer: state-owned enterprises or companies become now your companies where government has majority shareholding. Terminology that is important is the term form of ownership. This refers to the legal position of the business and the way it is owned, and continuity, which focuses on the idea that the business can continue to exist even if there's change of management taking place, e.g. a member or a shareholder dies or retires, the company or business would still operate. Directors refers to people elected to the board of a company by the shareholders to represent the shareholders' interest. Audit is a process when organizations' accounts are checked to make sure its financial operations are honest or transparent. Then limited liability, this refers to losses. Losses are limited to the amount that the owner invested in the business. But when we look into unlimited, the owner's personal assets may be seized to pay the debt of the business, because now what is owed by the business is basically implicating the owner as well. That is what we mean with unlimited liability. Now, criteria that we'll be looking into, or factors that will be determining the success or failure of each form of ownership, is your tax implications, your management, your capital, together with division of profits and legislation. We'll look into different forms of ownership, your sole trader, your partnership, your companies, on how they will be affected by these factors and whether these factors will have a success or failure for these different forms of ownerships. Now, we talked about tax implication. The tax requirements for each form of ownership determines the impact of taxation and the success or failure it has on the business. Then we look also into management, which is to say now ownership impacts on management function, which determines the success or failure. If it is easy to manage and make decisions, it means then it's a success. But if it takes time to make the decision, then it becomes a failure. Then capital, now we are looking into the amount of money. It refers to the ability to obtain capital from various sources. So the amount of money needed to start a capital, can the form of ownership allow own, or can it allow borrowed capital? And the amount of capital that can be sourced will impact on the business success or failure. Then we also look into division of profit, which refers to the idea of how profit is divided by the owners, shareholders, and investors. And then we also look into legislation or legal requirements for establishment or starting a business, which impact on the establishment cost and time before a business can legally start doing their operations. Now, let's start with the sole trader. We will look into management and look into success and failure factors of managing a sole trader. Remember, a sole trader is a business that is owned by only one person who makes all decisions and takes all the profit. So when it comes to management, the success of owning a sole trader is that the owner, one owner, so there's no disagreement, and can make quick decisions without having to consult with others. However, failure is that the owner has to do all the administration, management, and decision making for the business, and the owner has to rely on their own decision and could make incorrect ones. Then taxation, the owner is only taxed on profits in their personal capacity, meaning the sole trader will not be taxed as a business, but the owner will be taxed in their personal capacity. And depending on how much income the owner earns, his or her tax rate may be lower than the company tax rate. Then when we're looking into failure, if profits get too big, it may end up paying high tax in their personal capacity, and failure by the owner to comply with the personal income tax regulations could lead to substantial financial penalties imposed by SARS. Then, as we proceed, we look into capital. Capital can be carefully spent and managed in a sole trader, and again, the owner may be able to borrow money from a financial institution, especially if he or she has assets that can be used as surety for the loan. However, failure is that profits may not be larger enough for expansion and cannot appoint people with large salaries, and the owner is responsible for any capital borrowed. Division of profit, the success now there is that the sole trader is owned by only one person. Therefore, the owner receives all the profit from the business, which can lead to capital growth, and then the owner may use profits to expand the business. The failure is that the owner needs to budget carefully so that the business debts are covered, and if the owner does not make profit, the income and livelihood of the owner may be severely affected. And then legislation, it is easy and inexpensive to start the business. However, the owner has unlimited liability, which may encourage the owner to work harder to now ensure that the success of the business. Now, this is to say, if the business is owing, then the owner will have to, or might end up having to pay using their own assets. So they will be encouraged by that particular reason to work harder so that they achieve the success for the business. So the disadvantage is unlimited liability. To say if the business is failing to pay their expenses, then the owner will have to use their own income or their personal income, or end up selling their personal assets to pay off the debts of the business. And then personal debts and business debts are not separated here, and they must comply with relevant municipal regulations, and it could lead to a close down of that particular business. Now we look into a partnership. Remember, with the partnership, we are looking into a business that is owned by two or more people. What are the success factors when it comes to managing a partnership as a form of ownership? This form of ownership allows partners to be actively involved in management and to use ideas from other partners. And then partners have success or have access of expertise of other partners when difficult decisions have to be made. Then failure is that decision making is time consuming, as all partners have to agree, and partners may disagree on how to run the business, which could lead to tension between them. Then we move to another aspect. Taxation, partners pay tax only on relevant products. Hence, we say partnership pays now VAT, value-added tax on relevant products sold or rendered which reduces tax administration, and then partnership does not pay the income tax. So when we are saying partnership, we are saying the business does not pay tax, only the partners in their personal capacity. Failure is that high earning partners pay more tax, which may discourage other partners from joining. So high earning meaning the high profits received by the partners in that business can be paying high tax because they are taxed in their personal capacity. And then partners may withdraw more cash to reduce their tax burden, which may cause cash flow problems for the partnership. Then we proceed to another criteria, capital. When we are looking into capital, how easy it is for the partnership to get the money, or can they combine or raise more capital. The success part there is that capital can carefully be spent and managed, and more than one partner contributes capital, so it means they can at least try to increase or raise a lot of capital. Then partners may not have capital to put into the business when needed. That can be a failure. And unequal inputs, as some partners put in their expertise instead of cash, so that becomes a failure because some will come and bring their skill and expertise, and then while some put in their money. Division of profit. Profit is shared according to their contribution. Then failure. The amount of work done may not be equal to the amount of profit that each partner receives. So that can be unfair because some might be contributing money, but the amount of work done might actually be less. So that can lead to a disadvantage or a failure when you're looking into owning now a partnership, because some partners will feel that they are receiving less profit and they are the ones who are doing a lot for the organization. Then legislation. It is easy and cheap to establish, as partners must draw up a partnership agreement. However, partners are more motivated as to make it a success because their personal positions are at risk, because the partnership has unlimited liability. So it means if the partnership fails or if the partnership has debt, they will have to end up paying using their personal income, or they have to end up selling their assets. So again, it becomes a failure. Hence, we say now unlimited liability. Partners are jointly and severally liable for the debts of the business. And if one partner dies or retires, the remaining partners need to draw up a new partnership agreement. Then we move to a private company. Remember, a private company is managed or by directors and owned by shareholders. So the shareholders are not there as the company is run on a day-to-day basis. So looking into the success and failure factors of the management of a private company is that it is managed at least by a one competently, highly skilled director. It means it's an individual with skills and abilities, so they're able to take the company, or they are able to ensure that the company achieves the vision and mission. And then shareholders vote for or appoint the most capable director to manage their company. However, the failure when it comes to managing that directors may not have direct interest in the company, which can hamper the growth and profit, because remember, directors didn't contribute any money towards the company being established. And then directors' fee increase the company's expense, which reduces their net profit, because remember, these are highly, now a director is a competently, highly skilled individual, which would require a large amount of salary, which we call director's fee. Then taxation. It can obtain tax rebates if now the CSI projects are conducted. CSI, those are your corporate social investment, and it can obtain government tenders and renew licenses if they do not evade tax. However, the disadvantage is that they are subjected to double taxation and shareholders pay secondary tax. This can have a negative impact to a company that is already financially struggling. Capital. Large amount of capital can be raised, since there's no limit on the number of shareholders, and the company can access long-term capital and therefore has good long-term opportunities or growth. Then it cannot grow into a very large business, since they cannot invite the public to come and buy shares. Remember, we're talking about the public company, so they have to go and invite investors. However, another failure is that large amounts of capital cannot be obtained, as capital contributions is only limited to the private shareholders. Division of profits, however, this is how profits are divided. High profits and good returns to shareholders indicate the success of the company, which increases the value of shares. And then shareholders receive profits according to the type or number of shares they have. And then Shareholders may sell their shares when dividends are low, resulting in drop in share prices, and then dividends are not always paid out, which may discourage new investors. Then, legislation. Companies which comply with the legislation build a positive now image and may attract investors and continuity of existence due to legal personality of the company. And then limited liability allows greater financial risk, which may lead to growth of the business. And then when you're looking into legislation, remember, talks about how easy it is to start the business, the registration processes. When you're looking into that process now, with a private company, formation procedures are time consuming, complicated, or expensive, as many legal documents need to be submitted or prepared. In an annual audit of a financial statement, they may, if required, become very, very costly. To audit refers to the process of checking the organization's accounts or financial statements. Public company now, it is managed as well. When you're looking into management, public company is a company that is able to sell shares to the public. It is managed at least by one competent, highly skilled director, and shareholders vote for the most capable director. So if you check this is similar to what we spoke about in the private company. And then what is the failure there is that directors may not have direct interest in the company, which may hamper the growth and profitability or profit maximization abilities of the organization, because this is a public company. And large management structures can result in decision making taking time. Then, taxation. They can obtain tax rebates if they're involved in CSI projects, and when we are looking into obtaining now government tenders as well, and renew their licenses if they are not evading tax. That's an advantage or a success for owning now a public company. However, when we're looking into taxation, again, they're subjected to tax, to double tax. And then when you're looking into that, shareholders pay secondary tax. This can have a negative impact on the company that is already financially struggling. Capital. Looking into that, capital now with a public company can raise a large now amount of capital, as shares or debentures can be issued to the public or shareholders. And then a company's shares are listed on JSE, which gives the company exposure to more potential investors, unlike that of a private company. The failure is that now large amounts of capital are required to start their public company, and raising extra capital may be difficult if economic climates are unfavorable or share prices change all the time and they may lose value. Then, division of profits, the success there, high profits and good returns as shareholders indicate of shares indicate that now there's a success or in that company, which increases the value of shares. And then when you're looking into shareholders receiving profits again according to the types of or number of shares they hold, that is similar to that of a private company. So basically, when you are studying division of profits for private company, you're also studying it for a public company. Failures that shareholders may sell their shares when dividends are low, resulting in drop in the share price. Remember, if the share price is 20 rand and we see now more and more individuals selling their shares, the share price can be reduced to 10 rand. And then dividends are not always paid out, which may discourage new investors. Then that becomes a problem. Then, looking into legislation, the company and its owners are separate legal entities, which may encourage more people to join the company. What do we mean by that? The company is one side and the shareholders are one side. So what the company is owing is what the company is owing. Hence, we say those are separate legal entities. So a company is a legal entity that is taken as a human being. It can be sued. It can own assets. So whatever that is owed by the company is owed by the company, will not overlap to what the shareholders have or what the shareholders own. The whatever the shareholders can lose is now what they have invested in the public company. So it also talks to the idea of limited liability, which allows for greater risk taking, which may lead to growth of the business. Failure is that the formation process or procedures are time consuming, complicated, or expensive, as many legal documents have to be prepared and submitted, and high formation or established expenses require large startup capital. Then, when you are looking into personal liability company, success of the personal liability company is that it is managed by a competent board of director who may be experts in the field, and quick decisions can be made even if there's only one director. Then looking into failure, directors may not have direct interest in the company, which can hamper the growth and profit maximization, and directors' fee increase the company's expenses. Then taxation, they can obtain tax rebates as well, and then the government can offer tenders as well and renew their licenses, and the PLC will also pay what? Tax. They only pay tax after the business expenses have been deducted. And then when you're looking into the failure, they are subjected to now double taxation, as your shareholders have to pay secondary tax. So this is basically similar to the private and the public company, because you are referring to a personal liability company. Capital can be increased by getting more shareholders there, and then it cannot grow into a very large business since it cannot invite the public. So this becomes now similar to a private company, and restrictions on transferability of shares may not attract financially strong investors. Then profit division, the high profits and good returns to shareholders indicate the success of the company, which is similar again to what? To your private company, and profits generated can be reinvested to expand the business. Then shareholders may sell their shares when dividends are low, resulting in a drop in the price. So as the shareholders sell now their shares, then the dividends will be lower, and then the value of shares will also be lowered. Then dividends are not always paid out, which may discourage new investors. Then legislation, the company and its owners or shareholders are separate legal entities, which may encourage more people to join in. I explained that. And then directors are forced by the act to act responsibly and work harder towards the success of the company to protect their personal assets. Because according to personal liability company now, it says now directors would be having what we call unlimited liability. Now, unlimited liability will push them to work harder, because when you're saying the directors have unlimited liability, it means whatever that is owed by the business now has to be paid by them, because they are the ones who run the business on a day-to-day basis. And then failure is that lengthy restrictions, lengthy registration requirements may delay the actual operations of the business, and shareholders can lose on profitable opportunities. And it is expensive to register this form of ownership, which can increase the business expenses. Then non-profit companies, your non-profit companies may be well managed, as it requires a minimum of 3 directors, and then more directors may be appointed to bring more skill, ideas, innovations, or expertise to the non-profit organization. However, failures that large management structures can complicate or delay decisions, and directors may mismanage the business funds, as they may not have direct interest to the non-profit company. And taxation, they may qualify for tax exemption if certain criteria are met, and they may receive certain tax benefits or rebates when actively involved in the community. And then when you're looking into the failures that it requires, the failure of taxation requires to pay income tax if engaged in activities that are unrelated to their business purpose, and must meet certain tax requirements to be exempted. Operations must be exclusively for charitable, scientific, or public safety purposes. Then, capital, unlimited number of founders may contribute more capital to the company. However, the failures that founders may contribute limited capital and may not contribute capital, which may not be sufficient for the establishment and operations of a non-profit company. And the profits division side says now the profits of the company are used to finance needs of the company, and may discourage potential investors investing in the company, as this is a non-profit company, is not operating to make profit. Then legislation, the company and its shareholders are separate legal entities and may encourage more people to join in, and financial statements are audited. This may result in effective use of resources. And then formation procedures, or the time to start now with the company operations, might be time consuming and expensive. Hence now, as many legal documents have to be submitted. Then we look into a typical exam question. We have there Zama and Quentin, who are qualified lawyers who have started a business called Z&Q Attorneys, which lacks continuity. They want to convert their business into a personal liability company. Now, question one, name the form of ownership that Zama and Quintin are currently operating with, and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario and explain how division of profits and taxation can contribute to the success of a personal liability company for 8 months. What is the answer there? As you see, Zama and Quintin are qualified lawyers. Now they want to start their own business, which is called Z&Q Attorneys, which lacks continuity. Now, when you're looking into the forms of ownership, you should understand that when we were addressing the issue of your characteristics of different forms of ownership, there's only one form of ownership which allows partnership. We call it a partnership business. And in a partnership, remember, there's no continuity because there should be an agreement, which we call a partnership agreement. So when we are talking about the business that lacks continuity, this is to say if one partner passes away, they need to stop the business and start a new partnership agreement because the other partner is not there. So it cannot just continue with a partner that has retired or a partner that has passed on. So the name of the business here that is applicable to Zama and Quentin should be a partnership. Now let's look into the solution. Yes, the solution is partnership, and 1 mark for the motivation, and you get 3 there. And then as we move now to looking into division of profits and taxation of a personal liability company, division of profits, higher profits, and good returns to shareholders indicate the success of a company, which increases the value of shares, and profit generated can be reinvested to expand business operations. And then looking into the failure that shareholders may sell their shares when dividends are low, resulting in a drop in share prices, and dividends are not always paid out, which may discourage new investors. Looking into now taxation, they can obtain now tax rebates if they contribute towards CSI projects, which is projects looking after the community, and they can obtain government tenders and renew their licenses if they do not evade tax. And then your personal liability companies pay tax after business expenses have been deducted. And then looking into the failure there is that there is obviously they are subjected to double tax. Shareholders pay secondary tax. This can have a negative impact on the company that is already financially struggling. 2 marks there and 2 marks there, and then 2 marks for the first 2 as well. And then we are done with our lesson summary. We looked into tax implications, management, capital, and division of profits, and legislation and legal requirements for the different forms of ownership. So be careful when you are studying your private company, a public company, and personal liability. Remember, some aspects there, they are very similar because those are companies that are operating to make profit. And remember, companies operate in the same system. It's just the difference is that the other company is able to sell shares to the general public, while the other one is not able to sell shares to the general public. And we also have personal liability, which is similar to a private company. The only difference now is that with a personal liability, directors have unlimited liability to say, since they are running the organization every day, if the business has debts, they are also liable to paying those debts. And if they are failing to do so, they might have to sell their personal assets in order to pay the debts of the organization. So that was our lesson there. Remember to take care of yourself, study more. You are about to reach the success or the end destination of your grade 12. Thank you for watching.